Hello, Stephanie. How are you? I have to ask you a question, and the question is about those skeletons that we all have in the closet. So the question is, what is your most successful failure? Okay, that election or that strategy that you made and that was a failure, but afterwards it was something good for you as a professional that allowed you to improve. Okay, so good luck with your session. See you soon, and thanks. Bye.
My most successful failure was a campaign I made with my friends Sam and Joe for BBC Radio 1, which was excellent, maybe the best film I ever made that never ran. And it taught me to not attach my ego to the outcome, but to the people I worked with and the creative process. That was the lesson. Hey, Tobias, it's Stephanie. I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name right, but I hope I am, because I'm about to say it 2 more times. If grown-up Tobias could tell little boy Tobias anything, any piece of advice, what would it be?
Thank you, Stephanie, for your question. It was a tough one. Well, what would big Tobias tell little Tobias? I think the best tip for me would have been to say, do not put all eggs into one basket. Make sure that you have something that is equally interesting to your work and balance that. So instead of saying, hi, my name is Tobias, I'm working in advertising, I would say, hi, I'm a surfer. And I happen to work in advertising as well. That's it. Thank you. Hi, John. I hope you're doing all right. Great to meet you. I have one question. Could you give me an example of when you're truly happy in this business? Thank you.
So when do I really feel happy in this business? I kind of think there's 2 answers to that question. One is fun. Like, I had probably the most fun in this business in my 20s, co-founding a slightly mad agency with a group of friends, and it was a lot of fun, and we sort of ate, slept, talked, created, did everything together, and I think that was more fun than college, just from a fun point of view. I'm happiest when I am really at a stretch. Like, what I'm working on isn't impossible, but it's difficult, and I have that most weeks. I came over here on the train working on something where I'm really not sure, but I'm starting to make progress, and it's a kind of different kind of happiness. There was a psychologist who wrote a book called Flow, who said that when people are just in that condition of productive medium between failing and succeeding, and I identify with that, and from that point of view I love what I do every week and I'm happy. I have no complaints. I had a question as well for the next speaker, which is something that happened to me several times, but I know you're a huge data expert, so maybe it doesn't happen to you, which is, did you ever instigate a campaign on the basis of a killer fact or insight where the campaign was then successful but you subsequently found out the fact wasn't true? Maybe it didn't happen to you, it happened to me a few times, but I thought it'd be interesting to ask, or maybe you just talk about the power of pointy facts to create effective work without ever making mistakes. We'll see.
So to answer the question from John, in short, no, I've never launched anything with sort of something that I thought previously was fact and then turned out to not be, but I think that's in part because my discipline is sort of born out of not necessarily knowing everything, but knowing where information comes from. And so though you might not have the definitive answer, I think that as one thing that I've really tried hard to do is make sure that we know the sources of the information, because understanding something that came from a focus group of 20 or 30 people in a few markets is something very different than a very global or rigorous quantitative study, or something that came from a Twitter analysis or something else. In short, not exactly, but and it's something that I've always pushed my team to sort of understand, whether it's my direct team or peripheral team, to understand the information that they're leveraging to make sure that they are answering their questions to the best of their ability and as truthfully as possible. And my question for Omar is, I'd love to hear a bit about how you've approached developing a sort of global or far-reaching campaign, a campaign whether it was global, truly global in nature, or something that maybe has required a level of localization even nationally, both from a research perspective, but also as you've thought about localizing work and localizing media spend and localizing sort of the whole campaign for a specific market. Again, both either on a global scale or on a national scale that had sort of requirements to localize. Love to hear your thoughts on that.
All right, so the question was, I'm going to read it. My point of view on how to approach strategic and creative localization. How have I successfully devised localized insights for a brand, and how have we tested that strategy or guided localization in the work? I worked on a campaign for Kraft macaroni and cheese. Actually worked on the brand in the US, and we did work for the brand and noticed that they hadn't done any work for the Hispanic market within the US in the past 6 years. And when we looked at the work that they had done, it was pretty interesting in that they'd focus a lot on function, on almost teaching Hispanic women how to cook the product, how to boil water and pour pasta into the pot and stir it and serve it to the kids. And surprisingly, that didn't resonate with folks. So we thought there was an opportunity there. There was a business opportunity as well. There was an untapped potential for the brand. And also we knew that they hadn't done any work that had been relevant. And when we looked at the category and looked at the category conventions, there was a lot of space for us to work there and really do work that was going to stand out. So what we wanted to do was make sure that, because we were we sort of were guiding the brand, we wanted to lead with the current strategy and understand whether or not that strategy was relevant. And the strategy for mac and cheese for the whole US was about making it America's favorite family food. So for 75 years, mac and cheese had been in the market, and the brand had built incredible equity, but it was as a kid's food by and large. And when they came to the agency, they wanted us to shift that away and make the brand stand for food for the whole family. And they wanted adults to eat that food too. So a lot of that insight was based on leveraging the nostalgia and the equity that they built over those 75 years. Everyone had grown in a household where their parents made mac and cheese. And now they just needed to find sort of a reason why they would feed that for the whole families and eat it themselves. So we leveraged nostalgia there a lot. Now when we looked at the Hispanic market, it was a bit different. I mean, that same strategy wouldn't really work, not because people were foreign to these type of foods. Macaroni and cheese exists. It's just from the country of origin, for the Spanish-speaking world, they didn't have a similar product that had a similar role within their options in feeding the family. So you have to understand a little bit and redefine what really was the role of this food in their lives. And we started there. We just started by understanding, so what is the product truth for this audience? And is it the same? Is it different? And the idea that it was America's favorite family food really, really stood out, because I think that would have been an interesting space to explore. The fact that maybe this is aspirational, maybe this represents the way that we feed our family here, because we moved to this country, we're making a life here. It doesn't mean that we're not eating our traditional foods and maintaining that as our heritage and our culture. It just means we're adopting all these other cultural elements for this new host country. And so that's what we started to tease out, and it turns out there was a big hurdle there, because people were associating feeding their family this food with essentially erasing a little bit of their cultural heritage and sense of self. And feeding it to their children also meant that they were doing a little bit less in maintaining that continuity, that sense of cultural heritage in the next generation. But when we really boiled down to it and we talked to people, honestly, it was just a bowl of macaroni. And they were doing so much more to be relevant for their families. So the space that we sort of treaded was somewhat similar with the work that was being done for the entire market, which was you know you love it, and that was a tag, and you know you love it, hearkening back to that sort of heritage that people had, the associations that they had from eating it when they were young, and recognizing it's okay as an adult to feed it. To translate it, you know you're going to love it, which is a recognition that, you know, people came to the U.S. for a reason, and they were striving to make a life here, and they have adopted other elements of the culture, and this just happens to be one of those, and it's not the worst one to adopt. And when it came down to it, it was just a bowl of mac and cheese. So we had the family sort of eat it and take a bite and sort of look around, show an example of their cultural heritage, take a bite out of the bowl and look around and say, yep, nothing's changed. We're just living our lives here. We're still ourselves, but I'm enjoying this great bowl of food that I actually love, and I love the taste of it. So in that case, there was a somewhat common thread to the strategy, except, again, it was an acknowledgement that folks didn't really have that connection to the brand. There was an inkling of what it could be, and we're sort of kept working in that direction until we essentially wanted to make mac and cheese for this audience to stand for America's favorite family food as well, which was the overall strategy. And essentially, I mean, we're going against pizza, against burgers, which are the associations that people have when they think about American food. So we wanted this bowl of mac and cheese to actually stand for American food for them, not moving away from that. It's just in a different sort of life stage for the relationship of the brand to that consumer. And that was, again, compared to the work that had been done before, which just wasn't relevant. You know, most of the mothers told us, you don't need to tell me how to cook. I know how to boil pasta. So this felt relevant to folk, and it was successful for the business, successful for the creative work as well. So we did very well with that. My question is for Gareth Goodall. And Gareth, I would love to know your take on, I know you're talking about the brief, and I would love your take on best practices in terms of briefing teams against different objectives. Oftentimes, we'll have clients that have the expectation that we'll have a digital brief for certain ideas. There's a brand brief, and then we get all of these additional sort of project briefs that come out in scope. So what is your take on doing that and finding the common thread that you have against a single campaign for that brand, being able to deliver work that is consistent under the same strategy, but at the same time addresses some of the unique needs of these different.
All right. Thank you for the question. It's a really good one. I think generally speaking, there's obviously lots of different types of questions we're trying to answer. I would go for one brief that has room to flex so that it can answer all the different things that might come up throughout a creative process. There's obviously loads of things that happen, whether it be social, digital, rebriefs, new information that comes in. I think the real answer is just be really clear, be really simple, make it for the people answering the brief, make it absolutely crystal clear what is needed and what is expected, and go for simplicity and clarity above all other things, because it's incredibly complicated with all this new stuff we have to try and do. The other thing I would say is be open that all of these new random requests that might come in, the rebrief, the have you considered this, might actually be the answer to a whole new creative opportunity. So that to me is the main thing. One clear brief that's flexible enough to cover all the different things that brief now needs to answer, and then with all the random stuff that comes in, like a rebrief or a change or a piece of new news, don't see it as a problem or something that's going to change your brief. See it as actually an opportunity to create something really good. So that was my answer. My question to my friend Gareth K, the other Gareth, from one Gareth to another, from one strategist to another, I've been talking about creative briefs, but also brand strategy. You're obviously going to be talking about digital strategy. So my question, Gareth, is what is the difference? What's the difference between brand strategy and digital strategy? And also, what the hell are you going to talk about for 8 hours? All right, thank you. Bye.
So this is a response to the question from the other Gareth, the far better looking, wiser and erudite Gareth Goodall. He asked me about what exactly is digital strategy, and it's a very good question. I've just been talking with the folks out here just now, and basically I don't think there is such a thing as digital strategy, because there isn't such a thing as print strategy, TV strategy, radio strategy, or print strategist, TV strategist, radio strategist. What I do believe, though, is that there is a strategy for the digital world, because unfortunately technology, particularly digital technology, and culture has moved at a much quicker pace than advertising agencies, strategies and strategists. The brief, for example, that exists in most agencies today is the same as the brief that existed in most agencies in 1963. And I think that has to change. So, Gareth, you're correct. I don't really believe in digital strategy, digital strategist, despite having had that job title once. I very much believe in strategy for a digital or post-digital world. All right, to do the question for Julian. So, Mr. Coles, yet again, we miss each other in real life, but I've been asked to ask you a question. And I want to ask you kind of a practical question about your experience in different agencies. It's about how different disciplines, particularly different strategy disciplines, should work together. So I'd love for you to answer me the question, how have you best seen brand strategists and communication strategists work together? And how have you seen across the broader agency it'd be best for comm strategists, brand strategists and creative people to work together to get to the best work possible?
Hey Gareth, thanks for the question about the best way for comms planners to work with other brand planners. So I think the best relationship that I've seen is that brand and comms is really a partnership, and I think someone has to take the lead at each section through a campaign or through a process, a creative process, but you're working together. So the one that I kind of think worked really well was when I was at BBH working on PlayStation. So the comms, me being the comms planner and the brand planner, we worked really closely together at the start of the campaign. They definitely took the lead when they were writing the first creative brief, and I would just input where I could and kind of help with complementary research, but I definitely knew that that was her role. And then once we'd kind of hit the creative idea, I think then when we went down to tactical briefs, that was really my role, to make sure that I was writing those pieces of information. But I would definitely always be in lockstep with the brand planner. So that relationship's worked quite well. when it also has to feel like equal footing and equal grounding. I think moving to other agencies, what I've found is sometimes you might have one who's more senior than the other, and it just, to me, it doesn't work. You need someone who's equal level to you and seen as kind of a partnership. Hey Toby, heard you're going to be speaking about effectiveness, which I'm super excited about. Wish I could be there. Because one of the things that I've found really difficult is with new mediums, it's often hard to find benchmarks for the success rate of different pieces. How do you go about, what's your process when you're using a new piece of technology or a new medium to find what the certain level you should be hitting with that to have a brand effect or any type of effect? Because we're kind of in this wild world where new tech is coming out all the time. So really interested to hear your process around how you deal with that.
G'day Julian, thanks for the question. It's a really good question. To set a benchmark for success with any kind of new piece of technology, it's really, really hard to do because it's the first time you're pretty much doing anything. So anything that you do is probably going to be successful in any shape or form because it's a first activity. I think the only way that you can kind of really judge whether things are working or not is actually to go, okay, what would failure look like? And that's actually a better way for you to benchmark stuff. So saying, if we're going to create a new type of piece of content, what does a fail feel like for us in terms of distribution, engagement rates, or how people are going to interact with it? There's a lot of digital landfill out there. If we're creating something that's going to be part of that, then I think that's a failure. And usually, for my mind, things like that are far better benchmarking opportunities for us. So if this is bad, we want to make sure we definitely beat bad. And I think that's the only easy way for us to think about success. Hope that answers your question. I've definitely tried to wriggle around it. Next, on to you, Rob. G'day mate, hope you're well. I wonder if you're wearing Birkenstocks tonight in this cold, wet, wintry, probably Amsterdam weather. My question for you, very, very simple one, possibly very, very hard one too. Do brands need a purpose anymore? That's it. Good on you, mate. Speak soon.
Hi Toby, thanks for the bastard question. I'm in cold and rainy Amsterdam, and yes, I'm in my Birkenstocks. Should brands still have a purpose, I think you asked. My answer to that is, yeah, they should, because they should have been started with a purpose. And if they weren't, and they're just there for money, then that might be an issue. But for me, it's not about creating a purpose, it's just identifying, revealing the purpose that was the inspiration to start it off. Because once you've got that, then I think you're onto something. If you don't have that, then you're just going to be one of those that's wallpaper. That'd be my answer. Hi, it's Rob from Wyden Kendi. I've been asked to come up with a question for one of my fellow speakers. And my question is, what is the single most important thing you need to know before you start developing a strategy?
Hello Rob, thanks for your question. So I need to answer to what is the most important thing that we need to know before going to think about strategy. I like to think about the strategy as the answer of a given question, but sometimes we do the mistake of going straight to the answer before even think about the question. And that happens because we receive the briefings from the clients, and we don't question the briefings from the clients. We have to find what is the problem behind the briefing to find the perfect answer to that problem. So that's why I'm wearing this t-shirt today. That is, I'm sure that you know the reference of this. So what is the answer to the main question about the universe and about everything, and that says 42, but it is not a really accurate answer because it was not a really accurate question. It was too broad. Okay, so I think for me the most important question to know before thinking about the strategy is the problem that we need to solve, because problems for a strategy are vital because they are going to give us more or better questions and better people willing to answer them, right? But there is a paradox in my answer, I know that, because if you think about the problem that you need to solve, you're already thinking about the strategy. So I guess that the answer to your question at the end could be a number, but for me, the most important thing before thinking about the strategy is having a problem to solve. So thanks for your question. Thanks to everyone. Thanks to all the teachers for their questions and answers. And see you soon. Bye.